Okay. So as we go through together the next 2 to 3 days, I want you to continue to reflect on why you decided to participate in LIDEReS. LIDEReS is one of many programs that will be offered during the LMSA National Conference. LIDEReS is specifically faculty and senior administrators. And as we know, always faculty and advisors have been a part of LMSA. In fact, an LMSA chapter cannot exist unless there's a medical school in which it's situated in, and unless they also have an advisor. So you are critical to the functioning and the success of the LMSA as an organization. I want to give special recognition, and I want all of you to help me thank Donald Rodriguez, who served as the past president for LMSA, currently serves as an MD PhD candidate at Pritzker College of Medicine in Chicago. And more importantly, many of you have received emails from him. He serves as our first fellow for the National Center for Pre-Faculty, not for Pre-Faculty Development, National Center for LMSA Leadership and Advancement, which is a new center in LMSA that I'll be mentioning. So please help me in giving a huge applause and thank you to Donald for all of his hard work. As we start off this conference, we want to take a moment and pause and remember that there's many people who are struggling right now with the launch of the attacks and assault against Ukraine. Many of our brothers and sisters are in crisis. And so we want to give a special acknowledgement and keep them in our hearts. As well, many of us have lost loved ones during COVID-19, and we were fortunate to be able to have a hybrid LMSA national conference. But let's also think about all of our community members and family members who have been sick and passed away during COVID-19. We continue to struggle with ethno-racism, which is discrimination against those individuals who identify as Hispanic, Latino, Spaniard, and we'll be able to talk more about that, as well as all forms of isms and discrimination that our colleagues deal with, but also us, as many of us have multiple dimensions. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that as we have this discussion and encourage you to continue these reflections. I also want to acknowledge Women's History Month started yesterday. And as we talk about LHS Plus identity, I want to give special recognition to a couple of leaders. All of you are leaders who have joined us today and who are part of the programming. But I want to take a moment and acknowledge Dr. Pilar Ortega, who many of you know co-founded MOLA, as well as served as the author for the cover art of academic medicine, which I've already printed this out and put it on my door in my office at the University of New Mexico. So please show support and send a special shout out to Dr. Ortega. As many of you know, Dr. Castillo Page just was named the new Chief Diversity Officer for the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. Dr. Byington, in the past year, also became the Executive Vice President for the University of California Health. Dr. Rios, who is the President of the National Hispanic Medical Association, is celebrating NHMA's 25th anniversary this year. So hope to see many of you again there. And special huge applause and thank you to Karina Diaz, who is the president of LMSA National and is also an MD PhD candidate. On top of recognitions, all of the committee members who have helped plan LIDEReS for the second time around. Many of you are familiar with the learning objectives that are going to be addressed over the next 3 days. But once again, we're going to be touching upon our representation in medicine and academic medicine. And I want to really encourage our osteopathic family members to speak up. Often they have not been present as speakers and moderators, and we've tried to make a concerted effort to ensure that they have equity throughout this event. Having us all think about what are the barriers and facilitators as we've pursued this journey in academia, thinking about the criteria for a next step, and what are the competencies we still need to develop. The next 3 days will be filled with plenaries and workshops where we really want to have you think about what are your assets as Latinos, Latinas, individuals who identify as Latinx, Hispanic, Afro-Latin, Mexicano, Chicano, we all carry lived experiences with unique assets that our academic health centers need to drive excellence. Think about the track that you're currently on. And if you need to make a switch, what are the promotion criteria that you've already been able to achieve? And what do you still need to achieve to get promoted and to move to the next academic level? And really moving away from this concept of minority taxation to building diversity capital, especially as we talk to our students see and hear everything. And I think it's really interesting when they start going around saying, I don't want to be faculty because I don't want to be taxed as a person of color. We're going to spend a little bit of time focusing on our own well-being, and the career consultations, which are only in person, provide that more intimate moment with some of our senior leaders. And then we're going to have a lot of networking. So if you're here in Philly, remember, you're going to be coming up and joining me this evening for some festivities. We're also going to be celebrating with AMA tomorrow. And there's also events on Friday night and Saturday night. So in terms of some just ways to engage you, remember to listen actively, speak from your own experience of I rather than they or we. Do not be afraid to respectfully challenge me and the other speakers and moderators. Participate to the fullest of your ability. Instead of invalidating anyone's story, really encourage them to share more. The goal isn't necessarily always to agree, but it is to help gain a greater, deeper understanding for all of us. Be conscious of body language, and don't forget to review and edit your name on the screen. And lastly, this is a space where you can speak in English, Spanglish, or Spanish, right? So please, I encourage all of you to pose questions in both languages. We are launching a new umbrella term, LHS Plus, which you can see here, which stands for Latina, Latino, Latinx, Latine, Hispanic, or of Spanish origin. We all have terms that we've used in our own communities to self-identify, and we want this to be a space that you can identify in any way you would prefer. LHS Plus recognizes our heterogeneity in terms of our communities with common geographic and Spanish language ancestry. Also recognizes historical terms that are on standardized instruments, but gives recognition of new emerging generational and non-binary terms like Latinx or Latine. And we also want to acknowledge our national identities or sociocultural, like myself and Dr. Pohl, who are both Bronx Puerto Ricans. So to start us off, I want you to take a moment and put in the chat box how you identify. So I want everyone to take a moment and put in the chat box how you identify. Thank you all for sharing that and continue to share it. So as I mentioned, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of LMSA, and you're a part of this, right? Our students stand on your shoulders. Many of you are alumni. Pretty much all of you are their advisors. We want to give special recognition to Dr. Emilio Carrillo, who served as one of the co-founders with Dr. Jaime Rivera of the first LMSA chapter in 1972 at Harvard Medical School. And they created the organization in response to the need for medical students, LHS Plus identified medical students, to organize against health discrimination, both inside and outside of our educational institutions. And I gotta say, over the past 50 years, I think this is the same statement that I've heard over and over again and continues to today. You know, how do we address discrimination inside and out? But even Dr. Emilio Carrillo gives recognition of the faculty advisors that helped him form the first organization. So as he has done, I also want to take a moment and thank Dr. Alvin Poussaint, Dr. Leon Eisenberger, Dr. Pushpan, and Dr. Kravitz, who supported him in starting the first LMSA chapter, as many of you support our students. The organization, as you know, started as one chapter in Boston, Harvard Medical School, and then spread across the country with different regional entities growing. 1982, the Chicano Latino Medical Student Association started on the West Coast, followed by the Latino Midwest Medical Student Association in 1990, LMSA Southeast in 2005, and LMSA Southwest in 2007. And today, LMSA consists of 140 chapters, serving thousands of pre-medical and medical students and at least 330 faculty. And as you can see here, and this is something, you know, I really want to stress our history and what we've been able to grow to become, both students and advisors and leaders. And as you can see here, the students have developed a robust infrastructure to support the organization. There is no other organization of this size that is dedicated to the interests of LHS Plus pre-meds, medical students, and our faculty. And this has been going on for 50 years. And so I want to thank all of you for bringing us to this point and having you think about what the next 50 years are going to be looking like. The other thing I just want to give special mention of is that LMSA did launch a National Center for LMSA Leadership and Advancement last year, and we have 17 institutions. And I'll be completely honest, I will not be fulfilled until every allopathic and osteopathic medical school becomes a member of the National Center for LMSA Leadership and Advancement. And Dr. Pohl is going to go over some of the statistics of what we look like within academic medicine. And I think once we review those statistics, you'll get a better idea of why I think we need to be so determined and passionate to build this national center. I do want to acknowledge all of the institutions who have already signed on to support the center, as mentioned, 17. So as you spend this time with us over the next 5 days, think about your own ability to support the center, but also the conversations that you should have with your deans, your vice presidents, or your vice chancellors back home. This is one of 3 professional development tracks for you, faculty and advisors. LIDEReS is all about your academic promotion and your next step. Listos is for our advisors to help them gain promising and best practices to more effectively support the academic, personal, and professional development of our pre-medical and medical students. Listos is on Saturday. And our 3rd track is our alumni professional track, because we know that many of our alumnus want to become faculty again. So this is a new effort to re-engage our alumni so that they can become faculty as well as senior leaders, right? We simply will not increase our numbers of LHS Plus representation if we only focus on the current pool. We need several thousand alumnus to join us. And as important to the information I just provided, I know many of you need CME. This is set aside for 20 CME credit. We're going to be able to allot that for you, but you got to remember to put your name in your box so that we can track it. And this is also in the program. So with that, I just want to open it up and see if anyone has questions before we take about 5 minutes before going into our first session. So any questions or comments